Hey,
Hi.
is it fun now that we've met in person?
Oh my goodness. I feel even more connected, and I wasn't feeling disconnected,
Mm-mm.
but it was so exciting to see you. So, just for everybody to know,
Yeah.
Jen was in San Diego for a week last week.
My daughter, Teal, was in some MNRI therapy, which is Mascotova neurosensory motor reflex integration therapy. And by the way, if you have any individual in your life that has had neurological trauma of any sorts, it's phenomenally profound how impactful those 8 intense days were. We had one day off in the middle of 4 days of therapy and 4 days of therapy. And so Noelle drove down from her home to see us. And it was so nice just to walk along the water and have
Hmm.
lunch and chat and get you to meet Teal, whom you've talked to a ton spiritually. So, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. So, I get to the hotel before Jen came down,
Hmm.
and I'm heading off to the bathroom. But then I, out of the corner of my eye, see her wheeling Teal in the
Stroller.
trolley
Stroller, yeah.
or stroller.
Trolley.
And I just had this, oh, hell no. And I started, and I practically ran like, oh, I'm hugging you first.
Yeah.
And it was just so nice. And Teal's energy in person it did feel very different than it does over Zoom. And at first, and I did talk with her mainly telepathically, not only, but at first I was like, do you remember me? I got a yes. But I could see she didn't really want to be touched. But then she'd look at me and she'd just get this big smile like she was going to giggle. And I was like, hello. Like, it's so good. But here's an interesting thing. So
Mm.
before I left the house, so Jen had said like the day before, hey, if you have X or this, could you bring it? I forgot like a little extra laundry detergent.
We were there forever. I needed laundry detergent.
You were there for a long time. But anyway, as I was thinking about leaving my house, I was like, okay, what else could I think to bring? And this jar of, so we have about 3 jars of pear sauce, like applesauce, but made of pears from my dear friend Lisa, who sends it. And Grant and I fight over those jars because the pear sauce is just so good. And look, I've made pear sauce.
I don't
It's
know
not
what
as
she
good as
did.
Lisa's because she puts a lot of love in everything she does, and you can taste it.
Hmm.
Anyway, so I'm like, pear sauce. I'm like, okay. I wouldn't even think to have brought something like that. A jar of something?
Hmm.
Anyway,
Mm-mm. To a
so
child who you've never met in person.
I have no idea what she even eats.
And
Yeah,
so to bring that home, I know we're totally
please.
tangenting right now, but no, to bring that home the next day, I gave it to her in the morning and it was so thin that I could pour it into a glass and she could drink it. So with
Oh.
her breakfast, she drank it. She, it was a jar like this.
Hmm.
I don't know, 5 inches. What was that, a quart
It
maybe?
was a decent sized mason jar, like the
Yeah.
medium type. The
Yeah.
medium type.
And for any of you who are not watching us,
Yeah,
she
thanks.
drank half of it the first morning. Well done, Noelle. Way to listen to
Yeah.
your intuition. And I think that's a really good reminder to even check in before you leave the house, anywhere you go. Anything
Yeah.
I need to take right now? Because I know I've walked away and thought those things and didn't do it and then thought back, God darn it. I totally should have grabbed that So that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and for those that are developing their intuition, as I continue to develop mine too, of
Hmm.
course, I can't tell you how many times my intuition, but I didn't think of it as my intuition at the time. And this was, gosh, I don't know, 20 something years ago. I would be about to go somewhere and take my camera would come to me, but I'm already in my car. And I don't know, that lazy part of me is, dude, I'm already on my way, even though I could have parked and just gone right in. But anyway, but I wouldn't do it. And then I'd
Hmm.
always regret it. And so it was, to me, that was a bit of the litmus test for me of how dedicated I was to actually listening, like listening and following through. And it took me a very long time because apparently once I'm in motion, I'm trying to stay in motion and I'm like, I don't want to be deterred. But when the pear sauce thing was just so clear, and I was like, oh, is that teal? And
And you're like, one
I
of our 3 jars.
actually, it's all good. And my friend Lisa, who gave them to me, I recently reached out. Like, she sends us a lot of like a lot of packages for our birthday and for Christmas. And she puts all kinds of love and everything into
Wow.
it. She was my neighbor and we have a deeper relationship. So anyway, I was like, what can I do reciprocate because I'm not the gift giver that she is. And she said, basically, let me know how much you enjoy these things when you do, because that's like payback for me.
That's the
So
gift.
yesterday I texted her and I didn't know that she drank it. I wasn't sure if Teal had fed herself.
Hmm.
But anyway, I shared with Lisa the victory of the pear sauce. But I do believe that Teal must have been the one. And then I was like, did she nose through my pantry when I when I wasn't looking? Like, how does she do that? Pear
No, that's a good
sauce?
point. How did she
Who
know
has
that?
who has pear sauce? So,
That's yeah, I never this is how used to I am having Teal talk to me and know things.
mm,
I didn't even think about how did she know you had pear sauce.
I'm thinking about it. How did she know? I could understand if it was applesauce, because a lot
Yeah,
of us have
correct.
things like that, or peanut butter.
And the other thing is, and I believe you can correct me if I'm wrong, or anyone listening can Google it and
Yeah,
email me.
sure.
I believe pears are good for constipation, and she had been constipated.
I bet any fruit sauce would have been helpful just
So,
because it's got fiber. Yeah.
yeah, apples have the peel actually isn't good for constipation.
Oh,
So that's why if you're going to make an applesauce for a child that's constipated, I believe you want to peel the apples.
interesting.
But I
Okay.
don't think it's the same for pears. I'm going to Google this while we talk
Hmm.
because I want to make sure that I'm not just
Making
pulling this
shit
out
up.
of my butt, making shit up. Are pears good for constipation? I can't wait to see what comes up next in my feed. Yes, pears can help relieve constipation in babies because they are high in fiber. You can also try offering other high fiber fruits, vegetables, or juices. They have both soluble and insoluble
Mm.
fiber, which can help soften stools and make bowel movements easier. Eating pears with the skin on can help retain the fiber. Ha! There you go.
Okay.
She is very clear cognizant.
Mm.
She knows things in the house, and we need to play with this more because if we've lost anything in our house, even if Teal has never seen it, 99% of the time, if I say, Teal, where is the shovel? And she'll just point to wherever it is. And it might not be
Wow.
100%, but
Yeah.
it's pretty dang accurate. I think recently she missed it once, and I was like, huh, it is not here. But most of the time, she's spot on. And she may have never seen it. Yeah.
God, that just really touches my heart because, and I know on For Our Special Kids, you address all
Hmm.
kinds of stuff
Yeah.
that are services to support Teal and other
Hmm.
kids who have medical conditions. And I'm feeling choked up right now, even
Hmm.
just talking about this, like how I'm seeing words like connected, useful, supportive. It's easy to work around kids. They're really
Hmm.
not helpful. Yeah,
Hmm.
thanks for, quote, helping clean the kitchen.
Hmm.
Now I have to clean up after that mess.
Sure.
But
Yes.
it's like this level of sophistication that she has that other kids like her will definitely have.
Yeah.
And look, in any way that we can follow our intuition more devoutly, whether
Hmm.
it's our vagina signaling to us
Yeah.
or not signaling, which is its own message, which
Hmm.
I've been aware of recently, or different things about our own body, much less a nonverbal or verbalish person. It's just really interesting that
Hmm.
she may be a bright, shiny example of what we can more do with our intuition than we would ever have expected for all of
Hmm.
us. And I'm saying that to encourage people to connect more with themselves in this kind of way and listen and don't discount it, even if you're like, pear sauce, why would I? No, that's my
Hmm.
one of my three jars.
And so, what happens if you had gotten there and Teal didn't really want pear sauce? Okay, nothing has been lost. No skin off your back. You're
Yeah.
all, meh, I'm going to not even offer it and you didn't offer it right away, which I think is funny. You didn't come say, hi, Teal, I've got your pear sauce. You
Yeah.
waited. It was maybe half an hour later where you said, oh, I have this little treat for
This thing I
Teal.
brought. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just tuck it
Yeah.
away for later. You know what else happens? I do ask my intuition about what jewelry to wear
Mm.
because a lot of my jewelry has crystals and stones
Mm-hmm.
that have healing stuff, and I'm like, what is going to support me? Basically, is like the question. And I got this bracelet that I made in a class, so it's like bead weaving. So it's like a 3-hour project. I really value this bracelet. It was the
Ooh.
first one I made like that, and my sense was to wear that one. And I was like this happens to me so much when I make jewelry, is
Mm.
get the message to wear something in particular when I'm meeting up with somebody. And sometimes I also have to be aware that I may have to let go of that piece of jewelry because I might be wearing it because they
Need
suddenly
it.
really like it and then it feels right to give it to them. So it was a little mixed for me, like, is she gonna
Oh,
like
pear
it?
sauce and jewelry.
And that one bracelet in particular, but she didn't
Yeah,
even notice the bracelet. And then but as I was sitting with it, I'm like, oh, it might look cute around her little ankle because her wrists are,
very small.
tiny. And
Yeah.
anyway, so it was interesting that she didn't notice the bracelet, but I was
Mm-mm.
prepared. Anyway.
It's so sweet. Okay, so this all kind of leads into the topic that we wanted to talk about today, which
Yes.
was connection.
Yes.
And we were chatting via text, what should we talk about today? And it just hit me pretty clearly that connection is so important. The fact that
Mm,
you drove down to see me, that we could connect physically. Yes, we have
mm,
an amazing relationship this way, but it
yeah.
was so fun to give you a hug and be in your presence. And there were a couple of times I'm like, right now, I'm like, you could have just held hands. I would have been like, hi, let's hold hands.
I totally would have loved that. It didn't even occur to me,
Or,
or I would have
or
done it.
yeah, I know.
Because
Or
I'm
sometimes
getting
when,
bolder with age,
yeah,
but
no, I do that too actually with people. But or
yeah.
if I hadn't been pushing the
Yeah.
trolley as you called it, the stroller, I probably would have linked arms with you
Mm,
because I
yeah.
love walking with girlfriends that way. It just
Yeah.
feels more intimate and connected, and
Oh, yeah.
that is so very valuable in relationship,
Mm,
whether it's connection with your spouse, which with Grant we've got a little story there, or connection with another human being that you haven't met, a friend, or connection with your vagina, or connection with your child. It's so important to just make a concerted effort at times. I'm not saying all
yes.
the time, but a concerted effort to, we've talked about this in the past, reaching over and taking your partner's hand for no apparent reason,
Yeah.
or good morning, I love you for no other reason than just good morning, I love you. Connection. So we just thought it would be important to chat about it and what it means to us. For me, it's a heart connection.
Hmm.
Giving teal, like we learned in the MNRI class this week, is the first thing that you do before you approach your child to give them therapy because it was a home program. So I was learning as much as Teal was experiencing.
Oh,
It
gotcha.
was fucking exhausting. I can tell you it
Mm.
was exhausting. But it's about reaching first with your heart before you reach with your hand.
Ooh,
And if we think
interesting.
about that with everyone, if I first reach out with my heart and just, there you go, there's my heart energy. And you can do this before you leave the house in anticipation of meeting someone.
Yeah.
You can do this before you say good morning to your husband or your spouse. Reach out with your heart first and maybe feel it out.
Mm.
We'll have better connections as a result of that.
Absolutely. Before you even said that phrase, reach out with your heart first, what occurred to me is be present. There are times when I recognize, holy crap, I haven't been present in I don't even know how long. And I notice that when my mind is like distracted or I'm upset about something or I've got a negative thought about somebody, I might drop something. Like I'm clumsier because
Oh,
I'm just not present. So I made a stew, which I never do. This is new for me. I'm like, I feel like a real woman in my image of what real women
real
do, like
women do.
the
They
kind
make
of woman I
stew.
admire, how she lives her life.
I'm definitely
This
not
is
a
what
real
a real,
woman.
yeah, a real woman does. She makes stew. Anyway,
Real women makes stew. That
real
could be
women
our,
totally make stew.
that's the
But
title of the podcast today. Okay.
but because I have memory issues, I have to constantly reread a recipe when I'm following a recipe. And I had to say to myself, because I was afraid of messing up, I had different things happening around me, people reaching out, time constraints. I had to say to myself, and it was nice, I am here.
Hmm.
Even just saying it now, being present to it in this moment, I can feel my energy shift. I feel it mainly in my face and in my eyes. It really makes such a difference. And I can totally get that with Teal, somebody who's as sensitive as she is. And I've been a lot of, not to compare your beautiful daughter to like my beautiful, lovely cat or anything, but I can imagine with beings that are sensitive to energy, which a lot of, I could say all of us are, but we're not all. We're not all.
We all
Yes.
have senses. It's just the
Yeah.
continuum of sensitivity. Yeah.
What a difference that makes. It's like feeling somebody's intention before they arrive or something like that.
Hmm.
And I agree about preparing ourselves if we know we're going to have a tough conversation, which I've had a couple recently, which was really something to be connected to myself first and stay grounded so that I don't get so reactive and I'm not thrown off as easily.
Do you want to share a little bit of that or not?
Sure. I guess we're referencing our other podcast. So, my other
Yeah.
podcast is called Mediumship Sparks.
Hmm.
And last week's episode, and I recorded and re recorded again, especially after talking to Jen when we had lunch and she gave me some perspective. It's episode number 12, and it's about feeling like or being a spiritual outlier.
Mm.
And there was something else, and then being the weirdo.
Yeah.
Because when we accept ourselves as being not quite mainstream, whatever that means, being a medium, certainly not mainstream where I am, and among all the people that I know, the people that I've carved out as my support system of friends, definitely I fit right in. But everywhere else, I'm the outlier. And I've accepted that and I feel good about what I do and why I do it. And I'm so grateful at this stage of my life where I've released a lot of shame and other things that I get to feel freer to be myself because I accept me. If other people don't, or, and I had a very old, dear friend, and this is part of what Jen is referencing and why I did that episode, who has very different beliefs than I do about religion and God and spirituality. And in her perspective, and she believes that the God told her to talk to me about this because what I practice is basically a lie from a very different side of reality than is good. And anyway, and
Mm.
it was like a
It
real man.
was
It
stronger than that. No, let's be honest. It was
All right.
some of
You're
the
right.
verbiage she used, and she let me read some of the texts. Some of the verbiage she used
Yeah,
was extremely hurtful. I read it and was hurt. I hurt
I
for
hear you.
you.
Yeah,
And so I think you're being extremely kind about this, but in the whole entire concept of all of this, you stayed true to who you were and you stayed connected to who you were. And I
and to
think,
her, and to her. I don't want to take away
yeah.
from that because I know this is somebody I've known most of my life, and I know where her heart comes from with everybody, including me. But I can get why, and empath alert a bit, somebody telling you that your beliefs are a lie that Satan is putting on you to make you believe this and that, and you're being duped, and your whole life is a lie kind of
Mhm.
thing. And oh my gosh, I need to save you. And there's a real urgency to that. It is a lot to deal with and take in. And it's easy for me to soften the message a little bit now because I know her and I know where she comes from. And we ended up actually, to whatever degree, I don't even know, resolving stuff actually through text, where I was like, look, now I need to talk because I'm not okay with how things are left. And she was anticipating I was ending the friendship, which is strange to me because I didn't say anything like that. I need to still process that with myself. I don't need I don't know how you feel about this, Jen, or
Mm,
anybody listening, but I feel like there are so many ways that our world is divided.
mm,
And I am not a person who ever wants to live in a world that I create of my own connections where everybody has to agree with me. I don't want that at all. I have my group of medium friends, right? And I have my group of spiritual friends and of my political beliefs and all that. But I just don't want to draw those lines. I don't think
mm.
that's how I want to live because the people that I know and love, some of them are grandfathered in and they're entitled to their beliefs. And I don't love them because they have that belief, but I'm unwilling to unlove them because they have that belief.
Currently, at this point in my existence, I have one relationship that I really need to look at with what you're saying.
Gotcha.
Wow. Yeah. All right.
But look,
Yeah.
connection. Think about connection.
Hmm.
There's lots of good reasons to separate from people. Some people are freaking hurtful and don't mean to be or don't care if they are because they're speaking their truth or whatever it is. There's plenty
Hmm.
of that. And that's a good reason maybe to separate from that person, no matter what you have in common or what you don't. Because we don't need to sign up for that. But look, a lot of us have family, people that we are connected to, permanently, probably, that we could say we didn't sign up for that kind of relationship or whatever we want to say about it, often that have very different beliefs or even values, which I think is the more important thing, different values than us. And
Hmm.
that's a little bit harder to digest and swallow from somebody else.
Yeah. And I think currently in our political situation,
Hmm.
there is a lot of support for division, a lot of support for me versus you, they versus us.
Yeah.
Concept is really hard for me. It goes against a lot of my beliefs in humanity. The whole connection that I have with this person, I've worked really hard to bring back into an equilibrium of balance. And then there's some redundancy for you. An equilibrium of balance. There's redundancy for you. But I've worked hard to get back to a place of neutrality. And then this whole thing hit the fan and it's family member. It's a family member
Of
of
course.
mine
And
who,
I knew that
yeah,
was the case
yeah.
because otherwise you wouldn't be grappling this hard with it.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I'm at a point of how much
Mm.
difference and how hard do you work? And yet, at my father's eulogy, I literally said it's never too late to
Mm.
rebuild a relationship. Now, here's the thing.
Hmm.
I do believe in order to rebuild a relationship, both people have to
Yeah.
be genuinely involved. And because then you just feel like you're giving and giving, and you're getting shit on, and then you're giving, and then you're getting shit
Yeah.
on, and then you're giving.
And how about we try this on too?
Let's
Look,
do it.
I'm with you on that.
Mm,
And let's just throw in there the idea that there are some relationships where we are maybe naturally codependent, that we
mm,
stick around no matter how we're treated
mm-hmm,
or
for sure.
how our, let's say, needs, requests, wants, preferences are ignored. I can think of a family member that I haven't wanted to divorce in a way. I don't mean my husband.
Okay.
And that's part of the dynamic. And I have a choice. Do I really want to maintain this relationship? To what degree should I
Mm-hmm,
engage in this relationship, which feels like the much bigger question?
mm-hmm.
And what do I want to do about that? And I have been sharing, like with anybody who'll listen in the last couple of weeks, this really great Instagram post. And there are a
Ooh.
few that are standing out to me. One is about, look, boundaries are what you tell yourself you're going to do when X happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's not giving rules to other people.
Boundaries
Wait,
are
let
for
me not forget
yourself.
this. And don't basically treat somebody that they should have a role in your life, like a big role in your life, when clearly their behavior is demonstrating to you they don't want that role.
Mm-hmm.
So recognize like where people are at with you in a way, and don't give them so much more importance than they have earned. That sounds weird to
Mm-hmm.
say.
No,
But
it
anyway,
makes perfect sense.
yeah, but the boundary thing, this would be an easy one. A relative who has very different political views, and they tend to bring up politics. Nail on the head. Where'd that come from? Are you,
You're so intuitive.
oh, practically a psychic. But so imagine that you have this boundary for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You might say to them, hey, we differ in this, and I'm not going to bring up my views. And
Mm-hmm.
I'd appreciate it if you didn't. And if you do, I'm probably just going to want to get off the phone. You could say that. But
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing, if you have an agreement about politics and they violate it, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
they're just so unconscious, they just bring it up and they know that it bothers you,
Mm-hmm.
you could suddenly just decide it's time for you to get off the phone and get off the phone. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't mean hang up or be dramatic. What's coming to mind is this example, and I'm proud of myself for this.
Good.
I was at my mother's house with her and her partner, George, and they have their rituals in the morning of whatever they do, and which includes checking in on the news. And I am not somebody who follows the news. And I've made it very clear, please don't even share stuff with me.
Mm-hmm.
Please. But they insist. And on my last, I think it was
So
my
they're
last
violating a
visit.
boundary that you've set.
Yeah. And I've said it many times. I really
Mm-hmm.
have. So they started, and I know I was being present with myself. I had the wherewithal to say, oh, okay, so you guys are doing news now. Maybe I'll just go upstairs.
Good for
And you know
you.
what? They stopped because they didn't
Mm-hmm.
want me to leave. They're just doing them. That's what they
Yeah.
do. It's not deliberate towards me, but I can keep my boundaries to myself. And I wasn't trying to punish or withhold. I was like, if that's what they're going to talk about, I don't want to be in the room. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm doing. It's kind of beautiful.
Ooh, good job.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is all about learning for Jen today. Good job.
For
Okay.
all of us, I don't do
So,
that all the time or
oh,
consistently. I rehearse in my head ways to set boundaries with people sometimes, but it's hard
yes.
to do in the moment.
But I'm going to catch you. I actually think it's
Please.
setting boundaries with yourself.
Absolutely.
It's not, you just said I set
Yeah,
boundaries with
you're
people. It's
right.
not. You're setting a
Yeah.
boundary with yourself to stay true to yourself or
Yeah.
to, yeah, to stay connected to yourself, to stay in the heart center, to the commitments that you've made to you.
Yeah. My commitment is to not expose myself to things that evoke feelings of, let's say, hopelessness and powerlessness. And that's the news. So, yeah, if that's being talked about, I'm going to leave
Yeah.
the room.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about risk and taking a
Hmm.
step in perhaps an uncomfortable or vulnerable situation to better connect with someone.
Hmm.
So let's go back to Grant. The example, which is very simple. If someone is like, they're going to get all profound about this, but it was a huge example. You're okay talking about it? The constant?
Yeah.
Okay. We were walking on this beautiful stretch of land with Teal, and she was so tired. She was so vegging. It was really nice
Hmm.
to just chat with you. You talked about a concert that you were going to that night with one of your dear friends that was going to go with you, ended up having to cancel. Tell me what happened then.
I was going to contact another friend who
Hmm.
typically I will invite to come to concerts with me because Grant doesn't really enjoy a lot of the music that I like. And live music can be too loud, or he's tired or has work to do. There's reasons. So he appreciates that I go on my own. I was about to reach out to my friend, and then I realized, oh, wait a minute, I didn't even ask Grant if he wanted to come with me. And so I just sat with it for a moment, and then I just texted, like, hey, and I'm really trying to be a better communicator because it does bring about more connection. I'm sorry I didn't think about this before that I didn't even ask you, but my friend had to cancel. Are you interested in
Hmm.
going with me to this concert? And I was really unattached. If I said I can't go if you don't go with me because nobody else can go with me,
That's different.
that's not a real invitation. That's like an obligation. And I don't do that anymore. I think I've
Hmm.
done that before, but I would just Uber. But anyway, and he wrote back that he would really like to. And I was like, oh, okay. Wasn't
Hmm.
expecting that. And
Right.
it's, if I'm being honest, it's more fun to go to a concert with somebody who's into the music or into music in the
Correct.
kind of way that they would have enjoyed it. And that's just not him unless it's a band he really loves. But it was really nice to be hanging out with the husband and
Hmm.
do something different together because one of my things is, and all right, it's right to bring this up, but so I was listening to another Instagram post where I get all my info, but they were talking about people who hang out in your heart like an old flame that you sometimes maybe fantasize about, that they have qualities and traits that you want more in your own life. And so it makes that person seem appealing. But really, if you did some of the things that they do or the way that they do them, so you let's say playfulness, my friend Lisa, the Pear Sauce
Hmm.
queen. When I first met her, she was super playful and I couldn't get enough of her. I'm sure I was probably annoying. She was my next door neighbor.
Hmm.
And then I realized, you know what? I never let myself be playful in the way that she is. So, of course, I want to be around that. So it looks like I want to
Hmm.
be around Lisa all the time. And not that I
Correct.
wouldn't, because she's fabulous. I had this realization about this old college flame that I've talked about before here, who I think about. And I realized in this moment of going to the concert, not going to the concert, it's easy to stay home. But then
Hmm.
I think about somebody who was a lot more fun and playful and spontaneous. And I need to be more that way because I want that in my life.
It does sound like Grant was being spontaneous. For Grant, that
You're
seemed
right.
like a spontaneous
You're right.
choice.
Yeah. No,
So
you're
he
right. Yeah.
was showing you a little bit of probably he was a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You were a little uncomfortable. And it was like, no, we're going to do this. We're both
Yeah.
going to jump in. And maybe it wasn't perfect, but it was a step in the right direction.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I believe that when we are in relationships of any kind, a small step in the right direction may be the only thing that's necessary to get things moving. One small step. It might be reaching down when you're in bed and touching yourself. You don't have to bring yourself to orgasm, but touching yourself. One step
Mm,
in the direction. It might be asking your loved one to go for a walk. One
mm,
step in the right direction. It doesn't have to be these profound, oh my gosh, I'm now going to be a completely different person
yeah.
to reconnect. And I know that sex and intimacy is, in my world, all about connection, period.
Mm,
We've talked about this before, Alex needs to, when we were long distance dating,
mm-hmm.
he would need to physically connect with me before he could emotionally connect with me.
Right.
And I needed to emotionally connect before I could spiritually connect.
Mm,
Okay, someone's got to take a step in a direction,
yeah.
right? Either he had to choose to go for a walk with me and hold my hand and talk about everything, or I needed to say, let's fuck really quickly. Pretty much that's what it would be because we
You're not
needed to
feeling
do that.
connected.
And
Yeah.
then we could connect emotionally. So,
Hmm.
again, you don't always have to sacrifice yourself, but sometimes it is important to say, I'm going to make the step. I'm going to be the first one to say I'm sorry. And there's
Mm-hmm.
an okay way of saying, and by the way, I do hear this. Oh my God, I just got a very clear message from my team. They're like, do you hear yourself right now? Do you hear what you're saying? Because that relationship that you were talking about, how you guys are both at a
Oh,
standstill,
yeah.
one step in the right direction. And I'm like, shut it. I'm a hypocrite right now. I just want to be a hypocrite. Knock it off. Get out of my head. No, I'm kidding. I love you guys. All right.
But
Uh,
look, you have to be ready
yeah. And I'm
to
not ready to
have
take a
that with
step.
that person, and you're not there. Give us an example 25 years into your dynamic relationship, one that continues to move and grow.
Hmm.
What's something that you do that's a little thing now, but it's a reach towards him?
Something as simple as cuddling on the couch. We
Mm.
have both become so comfortable in our own spaces in the living room
Hmm.
that I don't scooch over and say, hey, come and cuddle with me.
Mm-hmm.
Something as simple as that. He always wants to cuddle in bed. I don't always like cuddling in bed. I'm like, get off. I've been touched all day. Stop it. But not when we're naked and not when it's going to get sexual. Like for
Gotcha.
me, that is a
Okay.
little step that I could do. Offering to make him breakfast.
Hmm.
Recently, he'll say, can I bring you coffee now or
Hmm.
in 30 minutes? It's like the language of love. We should talk about that book on here, The Five Languages of
Yeah.
Love. It's like a staple for most people. And I have never read that book. I said it.
I haven't read the book either, but I am familiar with
Okay, let's
the
do it.
five love languages. I don't know that you need to read the whole book, but I tell you, those love languages, that's really helpful. I was just talking to a woman who has a daughter. She's like 12. Every day, her daughter asks her to bring something from McDonald's for her. Like every day, like maybe it's just a soda or it's this. It dawned on me because I try to reframe things and I was like, huh, it sounds more because there are four children. I was like, oh, it sounds actually like she just wants this experience of you doing something just for her, like an act of service. And
Totally.
she said, oh, yeah, she does little things for people all the time. That's her love language. And I was like, there you go. And it was such a nice reframe rather than being demanding of McDonald's every day or addicted to McDonald's, which is a thing. But she wanted this, and I admire that this young person has enough wherewithal and clarity to say, I want to feel loved by my mom today. How can I do that? Let me
Hmm.
ask her for French fries or let me ask her
Hmm.
for soda. I think that's brilliant.
I'm, I think we may be giving that 12-year-old a little bit more credit,
I
but
don't
I'm not
know.
sure if she was consciously thinking, oh, I want something from McDonald's to connect with my mom.
Probably not, but you know what?
However, it is an awareness to be able to articulate
Yes.
it to her, which I do think is something to be honored. One, that she felt comfortable enough asking for what she wanted every day. That's
Yeah, I
huge,
mean,
especially to teach little kids right now. Is it's okay to ask for what you want.
mm,
It can be about you.
I'm just sitting with, I don't know that she thinks I need to feel my mom's attention today or every day.
Correct.
Like I'm with you on that it's
Hmm.
probably not a very conscious thing in that way, but she has that need, it seems,
Mm.
every day. And she has found this way to meet it. And even if I'm sure her mom doesn't get her McDonald's every single day, but at least she'll have a conversation. But then maybe that's the one on one conversation
Yeah.
that they have in that moment, and it still brings them closer.
And that conversation can be an act of service. I'm going to give you
Mm,
time for a heartfelt conversation.
Yeah.
That can be an act of service.
Oh, absolutely.
In terms of the concerts with Grant, did you enjoy it? Did you, looking back on it, did you say, wow, I'm glad I took that risk?
My a friend of mine from like high school days is in the band that we went to go see. And I spent time with him the night before, and he gave us backstage passes. And what I usually do is before the show, I'll go backstage and just hang out with him for a little bit. And Grant came with me, and it was the second time they've met each other or seen each other. And they actually got to talk a little bit. And it was nice because they both seemed comfortable with each other and found like common ground. And that was all worth it. To me, if that was the one thing that happened and we left, that was totally worth the time. And hopefully, next time my friend is in town, the three of us will have dinner and spend some time together. And it's really nice to include your partner in your friendships. Sometimes I'm like, I want alone time with so and so. Do you mind? But it's so nice when other people get to know and love your partner too.
I think that balance is
Mm,
extremely valuable. I have
yeah.
a lot of friends that, no, let me rephrase this. I don't have a lot of friends. I have some friends. Like, let's just, oh my God, let's
I'm
just be
sure you
clear.
have a lot of friends, Jennifer. You're very friendly and
No, but
open
there's a difference in my world between a friend and an
and an
acquaintance.
acquaintance.
I
Okay.
very much draw the line between that. And I actually
Mm,
have had to get better at being vulnerable. I'm very good at Tefloning or just
yeah.
bouncing things back. So someone will say,
Mm,
"Oh, tell me about your day." And I'll give a quick response. I'm like, "Okay, let's talk about you." And that does not build a balanced relationship. And that's
mm.
on me. I'm getting that. Anyways, I digress. But
No,
the,
actually, if I can jump in, I
yeah,
love
please.
that you brought that up because I think a lot of our earlier episodes, you totally did that. And I was not good at reciprocating that. And
Mm,
then I realized, what am I doing? I do want to know these things about you also. And
mm.
that's part of us both participating. So I'm actually making a much bigger conscious effort to either stop myself from talking so that you'll jump in or ask you a question to bring you in. But you're also really good, I think, on this podcast of kind of jumping in yourself. But you always ask me first.
Now I'm going to get all
That's what I've
aware of it.
noticed. Oh, don't bother. What you're doing is working perfectly, and now I feel like I figured something out to
Good.
make it more
Conversational.
keep it moving around. Thank
Hmm.
you. Yeah,
Nice. I like it.
conversational. Yeah.
Some people call that squirrel, like ping pong. But yeah, we do
That could
jump
be fun
around,
too.
but it's all
Yeah.
good. I like it when we do that. What do you do to connect with Grant on a non-concert day?
We've talked about rubbing his feet, which
Yeah.
I'm pretty good about, or offering him a back rub, and that's something I get very lost in the rut of everyday life with him.
Hmm.
And there are times when I'm like, you know what, when we're done with this TV series, let's stop watching TV for a while at night or
Hmm.
not get caught up in this, that we're doing this for 2.5 hours and then it's bedtime.
Yeah.
So I feel good about that when I can have the wherewithal to remember that. And so he's gotten more back rubs and he's like a pussy cat. He needs to be petted and massaged and scratched. Yeah.
How does he return it for you?
He gave me a back rub a couple of nights ago and he said, I think it's your turn. And I was practicing being more vulnerable and honest. I was like, you think? Yeah.
Yeah.
But he really needs that. That's one of his love
Love
languages is physical
languages.
touch. And it's
Yes.
not really mine.
Mm.
So I'm more like your hot hand is giving me a hot flash now, or your big heavy hand is, I'm more of a complainer about physical
Uh-huh.
touch
Me
than
too.
I am a
I mean, I did
needle.
earlier. Mm. Like,
Yes.
mm.
Whatever. It is what it is. But
And to caveat that, it's I don't believe it's ever positive to give with a quid pro quo in mind. And I know that you're
yes.
not. So even though you're like, yeah, you think, you were more saying, I love it now that you're realizing that you can give back too, but you weren't doing it to get something in return.
So it is really nice that he offered, and I was like, okay, you've got 10 minutes. How about we split it 5 and 5? And he said, no, you're way ahead here. Let me do
Mm-hmm.
this for you. And yes, let's recap a little bit. We talked
Mm-hmm.
about being more present, certainly with ourselves and with
Mm-hmm.
other people. Reach out with your heart first,
Mm-hmm.
which is beautiful.
Yeah.
And if pear sauce is on your mind, it has a lot of fiber and it can help with constipation.
Constipation, I think that's a good summary. And I also think that taking risks and taking the first step is
Yes.
extremely beneficial to enhancing your connectivity.
Yeah, breaking out of what would be an expected pattern in a
Hmm.
long-term relationship is freaking priceless.
Good.
Watching less TV, Playing
So
cards.
sometimes, or cribbage, like
Yeah.
sometimes I'll say, or Alex will say, let's not watch anything. Let's just play cards. He
Mm,
inevitably beats me every single time, but it's fine. It's all about just conversation and
yeah.
doing something different, which it could
Yeah.
be painting. It could be
Mm,
cooking a dessert together. It
hmm.
could be, I don't know, reading. We used to do where I would read a chapter out loud and then he would read a chapter out loud. Didn't last long, but it was a really good idea if that's something that works for you.
Actually, we are doing that. Grant's probably brought that up about French poetry, and I was like, oh, God, no, like years ago. But he has a book, Meditation for Mortals, and it's got
Whoa.
these chapters that are a few pages long. And he said, you might benefit from this book. So we've read just a few chapters, but one of us will read it out loud, and it's nice. So trying to find different ways to
Mm.
not be stuck. You want a relationship to last, you have to breathe life into it, even the
Mhm.
one with yourself, but certainly with long-term partners. Yeah, we have to keep things moving. It's good.
Thanks, Noel.
Stay connected. Thank you, Jen. This was lovely. Thank you for listening. If you want to reach out to us, vaginawhispering@gmail.com.
And don't
And
go to our Instagram right now. Nope. Mm-mm. We keep saying we're going to, we're not. So let's just not. Mm-mm.
we will someday,
Nah,
but
let's not see
or
it.
maybe not. Maybe not. Love us anyway, please, because we're busy women. But
And tell your and women make soup. Remember that one. I forgot.
stew.
Excuse me,
I'm
stew.
stewing it up over here. Yeah,
Yes.
I
That's
am.
another takeaway. Women make real women, excuse me,
Real women make stew
make
in
stew.
in Noelle's head. You may see yourself that way and not do this, and I totally get it. But for me, being
Real women make stew. There's the
anyway,
end. All
we
right.
love you. Thank
We
you
love
for
you.
listening to us, and we'll talk to you next time.
Have a good one.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.